If you would please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, call the meeting to order. That's right. Thank you for coming in today. If we'd all make sure that when we speak that our microphones are on, please. And we do have a quorum and good to go. And so I will need a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Motion and a second. Any objections? Minutes are accepted. Okay, on to the old business.
Well, if we may.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
Can we reorganize because our guest speaker is on Zoom today? So that'll give her an opportunity to provide us all the great information, but then also get off so she doesn't have to sit through the entire meeting.
I will allow it.
Let me pull her up. All right, Casie, can you hear us?
Yes, can you guys hear me now?
Yes, ma'am. All right.
I just didn't want to mute myself because I was afraid you wouldn't get to go back.
That's great. All right, Casie, at your convenience, you can get started.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. Thank you for dealing with me through my technical difficulties. I was not expecting that this morning. And also thank you for being here and letting me present to you on sea turtles and wildlife manipulating. It's going to be about a presentation in less than 20 minutes. If you have any questions, if you want to ask them at the end, I'm happy to go through them with you. Okay. So a little bit about Sea Turtle Conservancy is that we are the oldest sea turtle organization in the world. We are a nonprofit based in Gainesville, Florida, and we have been raising awareness
Thank you so much, Casie. Very informative. Did the board have any questions? Nope. It was very comprehensive. Great. Well, we thank you so much for presenting that to us.
Of course, and Melinda should have the slides, so if you need any information, maybe you can just review them or send me an email and I can get you some educational materials or things like that. But this was a pleasure. I'm happy I got to present. And if you guys need anything, just let me know.
Actually, I'm sorry, I did have a question. Is it too late to ask?
No,
one?
no,
Okay.
please.
So,
No, it's not too late.
thank you, thank you. So, thinking about the dark night sky and the lights and the wavelengths, how does the Kelvin, how does the color of the bulb affect that? Is that something that would be helpful to have a particular number with, not just the wavelength, but the actual warmness or, the Kelvin?
Okay, that's actually a really good question. I should have included one of those on my slides. So Kelvin is also the color appearance. We see a lot of it's called 2700 K, and that's 2700 Kelvin. It's a very, very warm amber glow. However, that is still kind of like a coated bulb. So even though it looks warm because it has a warmer Kelvin temperature and it seems cozy, it is still just a white bulb that is coated with a warmer Kelvin. So you should not be looking at the color appearance or the Kelvin when it comes to wavelength. The best thing to look for is that spectral distribution so a Kelvin would kind of wiggle, it would peak here and then it would peak and then it would go flat down, but it still has all of the short wavelength. So we can't rely on color temperature or color appearance alone. We have to look at the peak of where it's at on the spectral distribution graph.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. I appreciate you explaining that.
Sure.
That inspired a question from me. Do you, is it better, would LEDs, we prefer LEDs over incandescents or other forms of bulbs?
So all wildlife-friendly bulbs are going to be LEDs, just the enhanced technology to have the amber diode inside of that bulb. If you choose to do just a cylinder down light and an incandescent bulb, that's fine. You're going to get a lot more light output if you use an integrated amber diode. However, if that fixture fails, you have to replace the entire fixture rather than just replacing the bulb. So they both have their pros and cons. Whether it's incandescent, it's cheaper, it's easier to replace, and these bulbs have a 50,000 hour life compared to an integrated fixture, which usually will put out more light, it's more powerful, it's more intense, it's also more expensive, and you also have to replace the entire fixture. So kind of comes down to what is best for the application. We wouldn't recommend putting, an integrated ceiling mount on a balcony. It puts out way too much light. It's not necessary. But we also wouldn't recommend putting, a small little dinky pathway light in a parking lot with a bulb. We would put an integrated fixture because it meets those requirements of having more power.
All right, excellent. Did you guys have any questions? Come on up
If you would go
to the microphone, please. And push the button so that the light turns green. There it is.
I'm Lee Patterson, and I was just wondering if Walton County has an ordinance that prevents flashlights on the beach during sea turtle nesting season.
I can talk to that for a second. No, our ordinance does not specifically address flashlights per se. What it has in there, however, is there is a condition that basically says that there cannot be any direct or indirect light source visible. So what we try to do, especially with all of our visitors that come during the summer months, is try to educate them as much as possible as they're coming through our visitors center. We have accessibility to flashlight covers that they can utilize. We actually have flashlights, so There's a popular push over in Okaloosa County for you to stop at their visitor center and come get your free flashlight. Well, because of that push out of Okaloosa County, our visitor center also started keeping those around for our visitors to come and utilize as well. So even our residents can go and pick one up and use that and be good role models as they're out on the beach.
Okay. So you think the way the ordinance is currently worded, that
It's more specific for buildings and
Okay.
structures versus handheld lights.
Right,
So even with that though, our code enforcement officers are well-trained in that fashion. So if they see it and they're out on the beach, which they do long hours, so they have 2 shifts, A and B. One is a nighttime shift. So for those who are walking the beach and stuff, they will stop and they will talk with those individuals. And if they have the supplies on them, they'll hand them over a lens, and we try to make sure that we're.
educate them?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Casie, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's good. Obviously, we don't recommend flashlights, but we understand like tourists and up in the panhandle, things are very different. But I also do want to mention that just because amber lights and red lights are less disruptive to sea turtles doesn't mean it does not bother them. So using them in like the best application, if you do want to go out like turtle scouting at night, stay a safe distance away. Don't shine a red flashlight all up in their face and things like that, because it can still disrupt them, just doesn't disrupt them to the level of white lights. But I think that all sounds good. I know one of the coordinators at Okaloosa, they put out a really, really great video about sea turtle friendly flashlights and things like that. So just look to your local people and they'll have all the information that you need.
I had a quick question for you. My name is Kim Reddick. I'd just like to clarify a term that you used. I thought it was really interesting when you talked about the sources of light and the side glow from, I think that's what you said, from a nearby city. And so what's the term you used? Was it cumulative side glow? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So we use the term cumulative sky glow to represent light pollution.
Are you saying sky glow, S-K-Y? Okay, great.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, that's good information to take back to my community, so I appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, I lost it. But yes, that's what we use, is the cumulative sky glow represents light pollution. Anything else?
I think that'll do it. Thank you so much, Casie.
Okay, thank you all. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, Casie. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the Zoom now unless you wanted to stay on.
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay, thank you again. I appreciate you coming and providing this presentation for us.
No problem. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Okay. Now old business.
Yes. All right, and I can, if you prefer, I can just kind of go down. These do not require
By all means.
any specific action on these next 2 items. So the 2025 matrix update, so we go through this every meeting. It just kind of gives you an update on what we've been doing throughout the year. So we still do the weekly staff gauge checks on Eastern, Western, and Alligator Lake for our joint coastal permits. We do have a joint coastal permit for Oyster Lake as well, but that we have it for DEP. Army Corps of Engineers is still working on their review, and hopefully we'll have that soon. And in turn, we'll be monitoring that lake on a weekly basis per the requirements of that permit as well. There are staff gauges in all the lakes, so I know that at least monthly they're monitored by our water quality stewards through the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance. We also have our education series that we're doing. So obviously today we talked about dark skies because the protection of our sea turtles and stuff and our wildlife lighting ordinance, although it's not a specific Coastal Dune Lake ordinance, it does overlap where the Coastal Dune Lakes exist. So the wildlife ordinance is from the mean high water line, 750 feet landward, and so it covers a pretty good swath of land to help with that sky glow as much as possible, and then we work through that process. But really good information for all of our residents, property owners, and visitors of our area to know and understand. We also have, I have a request today that we'll talk about in just a minute, just to work on advancing of our invasive exotic removal program that we've done historically. So we'll talk about that in a little bit more in depth later. And then I skipped over our preparation for our Coastal Dune Lake Week by accident. So, and we'll go over that in detail as well here in just a minute. So on to that Coastal Dune Lake week preparation. I have started developing an agenda for each day. It will be the week of October 27th through the 31st of 2025. That happens to be the week that we will have our fourth quarter Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Board meeting, so that will be incorporated into our activities. So far, I have confirmed that Jeff Talbert will be doing a tour through the Atlanta Botanical Gardens of the Deer Lake Project Restoration Project. It will have been complete at that point, which is extremely great news. He's been working on this project for quite some time, but it still gives opportunities for people to come out and learn more about our coastal dune lakes, and the restoration activities that we have partnered with, and the state parks, and all the stewards that are out there trying to protect these amazing systems. I have Bill with our extension, that's Master Gardeners. He's a Master Gardener, excuse me. I haven't asked him yet, but I'm gonna see if he will do another tour. He did one last year on native plants, and it was well received. He does them on a regular basis at Topsail State Park, so he is a true advocate for our coastal dune lakes. So that would be a good addition. And then I also, like I mentioned, the Coastal Dune Lake Advisory Board meeting will be that Wednesday. Then Laura, too, with IFAS and our sea grant agent, she will be doing a Grayton Beach State Park tour where they go over plants and the ecosystems around the coastal dune lakes. It's a really good tour if you've never done that before, and just provides you a little bit more background, as well as a nice little hike for everyone and enjoying the nature. And then finally, we are partnering with the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance to do a paddle cleanup. That is something I will mention here in a little bit with CBA updates. But they actually are starting to do regular paddle cleanups around the coastal dune lakes, which is great. But they are going to incorporate that particular month's cleanup associated with our Coastal Dune Lake Week celebration. I will do a resolution like we normally do, so I'll take that in October. We'll do social media posts. I have gotten with our TDC about possibly trying to do a logo, maybe look into t-shirts this year. We can either sell them and then put some of that funding towards some efforts with the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance, or just have them for the people who participate in some of these activities, just to celebrate our coastal dune lakes and what they bring to our community. And then I think that's kind of it for now for planning, unless anybody else thinks of anything that needs or wants to include on that week as education and outreach. One other thing. I am also going to attempt to do a mail out during that time frame. So hopefully it'll arrive that week. I will try to plan to have it mailed out the week before so it can arrive the week of, but at least in the month of October, we'll plan to do an educational mail out. We do these every couple of years to all the properties around within the Coastal Dune Lake Protection Zone, just educating them a little bit more on some best management practices about the coastal dune lakes and our regulations here in Walton County. So, anything else? Thoughts? Opinions?
Oh, I thought you had something.
Oh, I love that. I'm so excited.
Do you have any ideas for the presentation at that meeting that week?
Yes, so the presentation is going to be, I've invited Taylor Engineering to come out and talk about resiliency. So that's something that our entire community, Walton County, we're trying to educate people more on preparedness, resiliency for preparing for storms, but also just making our community capable of responding faster and better to emergencies that happen. So, I mean, it's wide spectrum, as in, you could deal with something like an epidemic like COVID, or you can deal with a hurricane coming through, or look at nature-based solutions for protecting your shorelines from erosion. So it's very, very broad spectrum, but they are our consultant for the vulnerability assessment, and so I figured they would be a good group to come in and chat about that.
Good, like it.
Okay, if there's any other thoughts, or you want a second presentation that day?
It'll be all presentations that day.
A whole bunch of presentations.
Yes.
Everybody's gonna do one.
Right.
7 presentations for one from you?
Your final project for the CD Lab board.
Yeah.
No, I like it, because there's a big effort for resilience and resilience planning, and I think that not a lot of people know that
Yes.
is going on. We're still kind of early in the process.
We are. It's,
At the front end.
It's a nice coin term. Like, we all know that we need to prepare for hurricane season.
Right.
That comes up on June 1st. We all get our batteries ready. We all get our waters prepped and ready to go. Make sure we have canned goods in our pantry. But it's also about making sure that everything else is prepped and ready to go. And sometimes that's also knowing that Mother Nature does a great job at protecting us. So if we utilize nature-based solutions for protecting our properties, they will actually respond faster than most gray type infrastructure.
That is correct. Yes, that's one of the things I've been doing over the past year or so, is trying to insert the nature-based conservation into the conversation and make sure that it's part of the conversation in the planning. So, and we're doing it, so.
Mm-hmm. Well, and as your example, Deer Lake, what you guys have been doing over all these years is, yes, we can categorize it in several different project types. Removing an invasive species, yes, but we're also making that ecosystem more resilient in the future by reducing the invasive species and allowing it to act in a more natural state, and then keeping a good management. Because when we're dealing with state properties, they manage the property, but there's only so much they can do when there's houses around. So nature can't do its thing, so humans do have to help and respond.
Yeah, that is the crux of the resiliency proposal that we're doing right now, is that is taking place at Grayton Beach, and one of the big things that is doing is reducing wildfire risk, because we have, I think it was 4.7 miles of evacuation routes that run basically through the park, 395, 283, 30A. Those are associated bridges that go over the dune lakes. And so, those are major evacuation routes for a pretty significant population there south of 30A. So some of those areas can't be burned on a regular prescribed burn, or some of them have not been burned because they just are in, the wetlands are in not great shape. So that's smoke and wildfire issues that could be a potential problem. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, is reducing that by a lot. So.
Absolutely.
Anything to add? Good? All right. On to the next.
Okay. So next one is new business, if you'd like to take back reins. Or do you want me to introduce it?
I'm not aware of this.
Okay. So, and actually, what I'm going to do is turn it over to Michelle. So Michelle has been working on, last year we talked about doing a plant list and started some activities associated with it, but Michelle is heavily involved in her community and her HOA, and kind of took the project and ran with it, which was fantastic. I do have capacity issues, so when I have volunteers who can help with those things, I am much appreciative. And so for her community, she took on this project and produced a plan list. So I'd like her to kind of explain the process that she went through, what the plant list does, and then we'll go into a little bit further conversation.
Well, thank you. I'm just very grateful to have the opportunity to share the plant list with our advisory board. And I had a lot of wonderful people like Evan Anderson, Jesse Rushing, Carrie Stevenson, Matt Allen, Kayla Wingard, all, and I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, but everyone was so helpful and kind to give me their professional opinions and advice. But I know we're all here today because we recognize that the rare and fragile nature of our coastal dune lakes, these unique systems, unlike the spring-fed bodies of water, they rely heavily on seepish wind and rainfall, and that makes what we choose to plant in the coastal dune lake protection zone critically important. So our choices can either help preserve or unintentionally damage our national treasures. The plants that we select today will directly influence what the future generations inherit. So it's essential to choose the native plants, and not just species that are native to the southeast, but those specifically native to beautiful Walton County. Our coastal dune lakes exist in a challenging environment. We've got the sandy soils, full sun, high pH levels, rapid drainage, and a high salt content. And in these conditions, the ornamental plants, they'll struggle, and they're going to require lots of human intervention, like, irrigation, water, and that's costly, or fertilizer and pest control, and those are harmful to the lake's water quality. Worse still, invasive ornamental species can quickly outcompete the native flora, disrupting the delicate ecological balance. So Florida's native plants are those that have grown here naturally for thousands of years, long before European settlement. Why does this matter? Because the coastal dune lake region comprises of a rich mosaic of ecosystems, from the beach dunes to the pines to the marshes. It's so many different things. And each is supported by its own distinct community of native species. These plants are uniquely adapted to thrive in this environment. They've withstood hurricanes, wildfires, and the test of time. So unlike the ornamental plants, the native species, they don't waste the resources. So they're a win-win for both the environment and your wallet. With these deep root systems that prevent erosion and stabilize the soil, the native plants also create vital habitats for wildlife, providing food, shelter, and breeding grounds. From the seahawks to the Florida black bear, countless species depend on native plants for survival. Even native butterflies will only lay eggs specifically on native plants, making native flora essential to supporting healthy pollinator populations. Since our coastal dune lakes serve as an important breeding ground for many insects that form the foundation of the food chain, any loss of native plant life can have far-reaching impacts across the entire ecosystem. So I'm so grateful that our leadership here in Walton County cares about protecting our coastal dune lakes by enforcing a strict 100-foot building setback along the lake shores. So this ensures that the existing native vegetation is untouched and remains intact to prevent erosion. And it can also, the native plants can also filter the runoff to protect the water quality of the lake. These native species have been doing this for centuries, and they really serve as the sentinels to stand guard and protect our rare coastal dune lakes. In thinking about this, I can only imagine what those early sailors must have thought when they were out in the Gulf and they passed by and they first saw the stunning blue blooms of the blue lupine just crowning the high dunes, a sight so striking that it inspired the name Blue Mountain. Today, we may debate whether the blue lupine is really blue or purple, right? It's a constant debate in my house. But we can all agree on one thing, that the protection of our rare coastal dune lakes begins with planting native species in the coastal dune lake protection zone. And I hope the list is helpful.
That's incredible. That
Thank
took
you.
a while. That's amazing.
Oh,
How
thank
many
you.
plants are on there?
I did not count. But I have a feeling that it's that it's never ending. There could be some that get added, and then over time, there may be, I don't know, things that change. Things are fluid.
Do we have to take action on this?
You don't necessarily have to take action, but, so Michelle did this for her community and her HOA, so they are adopting it within their program there. Walton County has a plant list, and it's a list. It's not always readily accessible species. That's the problem. Like, you can come up with a list of plants, but if you can't find them from the nursery, that's a problem. And so if you have to kind of create a list, but then also cross-reference it with your local nurseries to see how we can work together and see if they can get them, because not all species can be propagated into a nursery type stock. So we just have to, have a little practical side to application sometimes. So with that, if you would like, I'll take staff direction and I can work with the planning department and try to see how we can get this incorporated at either reference level, so that as people come in for their building permits, or for information on the coastal dune lakes, this can be a reference, so I can add it to a county letterhead and do it as a suggestion. We can post it online, and maybe even eventually look at adding it to maybe the land development code, so it can be adjusted accordingly. Like Michelle said, it can be a working document, because there will be some species that maybe we find that are better than others. I know she worked with the extension agents here locally. They did a fantastic job as a team to put all this together, and it's a great resource. So I think that making it publicly accessible would be great.
Melinda, they also were so helpful by providing a resource where you could purchase native plants. And I didn't send that along, but that is readily available. And there is an app. The University of Florida has an app that you can actually put your zip code in, and the plants that are native and that will thrive and do well will pop up for your area. So there's just a wealth of information out there, and things that were not available in the years past.
And maybe that's something I can also add to our county website, so that people can access it. So the extension agency is an amazing resource. It is a partnership between the local counties, because every county has one, and the University of Florida. And then there are certain programs that extend beyond just the state and the University of Florida. Some of them are federally funded, such as our Sea Grant program that Laura too is a part of. So they have lots of great resources for us. So it's something that having our resource page on the Coastal Dune Lakes and adding their links might be helpful to the public as well. So I can look at doing that as well.
Will you take a couple suggestions?
Certainly.
There's a couple non-natives on here. Clinopodium georgianum, the Georgia calamint, under ground covers and perennials. It's at the very bottom of the page. And the blue days right under that are both not native to here. The vitex under trees, the very last one, that is not native to here. And the Confederate jasmine is not native to here.
I think now that I recall, we had talked about those thriving and being okay, but yes, I do apologize for those not being
No, that's okay.
native on a native plant list.
That's all right. Our county list has some too. And then there's a couple that aren't on here that would probably be good. So under the rhododendrons, under the native azaleas, canescens, which is a mountain azalea, is also native to here. It's also state listed, so and it grows very easily down here.
Yes, I
It's
did.
it's the pinkster, it's the white and pink one.
Yes, that did need to be included.
That's canescens, and under the Asclepias is the milkweed. Humistrata is the pineland milkweed, and it likes a little bit of a drier site, but they grow very easily, and that's the host plant for the monarchs as
Oh,
well.
that's perfect. I would absolutely love an email from you. If you, do you have time to email me?
Sure.
Exactly
I'll put this
that?
in, you. Absolutely.
Or the board, I guess, as a whole, or to Melinda and then to me, however we're supposed to do that, Shane.
Yeah,
But I would
absolutely.
love that, would love your advice. I appreciate your recommendations.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Direction taken. The next item under new business is actually something that I want to come before you guys as a request. So historically, we have done several different projects through different funding sources to do nuisance exotic removal off of the coastal dune lakes, and that's off of multiple coastal dune lakes, not just one specifically. So most recently, we had some restore funds that we worked with the Choctawhatchee Basin Alliance to do some treatments on, I think, at least 13 of the coastal dune lakes, possibly all 15. That money has run out at this point. I think we've been, that expired last year. So it would probably be good if we could look at finding some other funding to help support that program again, as our Phragmites is a species, although we think it's native, it can just really overtake our system. So we want to make sure that's controlled. I don't know that we'll ever have eradication per se, but we can at least manage. But managing requires funds. So we do have our Coastal Dune Lake funds that the Board of County Commissioners has set aside for us every year, and I have some accumulated money in there that we could utilize for this. So with your permission, I would like to request through the Board of County Commissioners to utilize $100,000 to do up this program. What I'm thinking is that might be a 2-year program with $100,000, because that's what we kind of estimated with the restore project that we did most recently. That may be a little outdated, but I think that would at least get us through a 1.5 to 2 years worth of treatment.
So we would need a motion to recommend that to the BCC.
Correct.
Recommend approving the 100,000 for Phragmites.
Yeah, for nuisance exotic removal.
In a second? No, I can't. Okay. Any discussion?
Right now, I don't know what the total is. I know I had close to, last time I checked, maybe close to 500,000 that was still in every year we get 100,000. And if we don't utilize it, they have been allowing me to accumulate it until we find projects. I do utilize some of the funds for mail outs and special projects that we do throughout the years. They're associated, like prints and making sure we have pamphlets and things like that on hand. But we haven't had a big project in a few years. So the last big project was the environmental assessment that happened back in like 2018. So that one took a big chunk of it. So if there's other projects that we think are valuable that we want to look into, I can do that as well. But this is one that we've been doing throughout the years and gives
It's
me an
really
opportunity.
helped a bunch. I mean, we have to do that. It was getting so bad that our lake looks great now, great lake. But there's gotta be some kind of maintenance. We gotta do it, or it's gonna come right back.
I agree, and also I hope there will be funds for the mailers in October that you had mentioned. I thought that was a great idea, but I have no idea what something like that would cost.
Yes, ma'am. So I usually just use the funds out of that. That's not something I usually, since it's such a nominal, it may be a couple $1,000s. to do the mail outs because I usually do prints and then I do mailings. And the mailings can be over there. I didn't look at the number this year, but I know historically I've done over 1,500 mailers. So that can add up a bit, but mostly it's the prints that I have that I get printed out and put it in envelopes, and we stuff it so that we don't have to have that extra cost for doing a mail order type program.
I will just add too that I've gotten the Six Rivers SISMA, it's the Cooperative Invasive Management Species Association meeting. This year has moved here to Walton County. It'll be at the Biophilia Center. So there's usually a spirited discussion on Phragmites at that. But it is close to home, so we can all attend without having to go to Blackwater this year. So, just FYI. So, with that, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
All right, thank you. I'll get that moving through the process in the system.
All right, on to the staff report, the building report.
In your packets, you will have a copy of the building report from the planning department. There are a few applications that did come in through this last quarter. So I do collect it quarterly, so it was January through April that you'll see on the list. The second item is our code compliance report. So that's also included in your list of complaints that have come in and what the responses were associated with it. I do want to make you guys aware that there was a magistrate meeting for the code board, or the code cases this morning. Exact same time that we were having it. I was unaware of it until just a couple of days ago. There were 2 items on there that did include properties that were around the Coastal Dune Lake protection zone. I did look into what the complaint was specifically, and it appears that it was more of a capacity parking concern associated with it. It was a property off of Eastern Lake on the northern side of the lake, and where Florida Fish House is. And so one of the complaints was definitely a parking issue, parking capacity. They'd added more chairs to their facility without the parking that can accommodate that. So that has gone to magistrate because that has not been resolved at a code officer level. And then the second part of it was that they added AstroTurf on their property on the outside associated with that additional seating that they added. Neither of these 2 things, I think, impact the Coastal Dune Lake regulations in the sense of like water quality and things like that, but they are violations that code has to handle. So there's a lot of overlap, but I did want to make you guys aware of it. It went to magistrate this morning. I don't know what the verdict is because it's going on at the same time as our meeting right now, but I will find out, and at the next meeting I will report that to let you guys know what the status of it is. I do apologize for that conflict. It was just they had to do this special meeting. Magistrate, typically they have their magistrates on a particular day of the month, and today was a special meeting. So.
All right, motion to fire Melinda?
Sorry.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Not nice.
It happens.
The next item is the Engineering Public Works Report. I have some very good news. The Allen Loop drainage project that we have been working on forever and a day, the grant has finally been issued by the Department of Treasury, and we'll be able to start moving forward with that drainage improvement project over there near Oyster Lake. So very excited about that. That just went to the board for acceptance on the 22nd. So our engineers will now take reign and do project manage this thing and get a contractor on board and start construction. So you will see in the next year or so construction going on off of Allen Loop over there on the eastern side of Oyster Lake area. It will do some good improvements for drainage. They will have some treatment as well. So it'll be a good project. So that's a big thing for engineering public works. I don't think that they had any other projects going on specifically in the Coastal Dune Lake Protection Zone at this time. So that was it. I have the TDC report. I think the only thing that they have two things. No, three things, I apologize. The first one, which I think at least Michelle went to, was the Camp Creek Lake Canoe and Kayak access. I don't know if anybody else was able to make it to that grand opening ribbon cutting ceremony, but very excited about that particular access for one of our coastal dune lakes. It is a pocket park. It was a very well designed and easily accessible pocket park that our TDC put together. It has a couple of parking spots, so somebody can drive in there to access it, and it's not just a neighborhood scenario where only the neighborhood can access it. There is a canoe kayak accessible, I think handicapped accessible launch there as well. So definitely a great amenity for our coastal dune lakes. And just from the talking, I know that the commissioners were very encouraged by this particular project and how well it was done and completed, that they want to see more of these types of pocket parks that can be amenities for our community. So I'm sure that's going to be a push here in the future to look at other opportunities that might be out there. Inappropriate, of course. Then we also have the beach, Grayton Beach public access, so that the community center that they're building, that's not specifically in the Coastal Dune Lake Protection Zone, but it is really close to Western Lake. They are still in construction on that particular project. They had a couple of delays because of the boardwalk. The boardwalk, the original design had, that they didn't quite get the slopes for ADA compliance. So they had to go back and kind of go back to the drawing board for a minute, and now they've redone it. They're back at the work. They're trying to work on getting that complete so that we can have that new amenity down there and actually have a restroom facility for a very popular beach access, which has never had before. So I think that will be, we'll see some good improvements associated with that, possibly water quality related. And then finally, we also have the Oyster Lake project. So Walton County purchased the property to the west of the Oyster Lake outfall, and TDC is currently in the design development stage for that particular project. And I don't know what that's going to in turn, I'm sure, but it'll provide an access to our beaches, as well as you'll be able to not have a direct access to Oyster Lake, but you'll be able to see it and have a passive access to Oyster Lake. So that's it for TDC. And I don't have any additional updates at this time. I know at the last meeting, it was requested to talk about OFWs. That was by Julia, and since she wasn't here, I chose not to put it on the agenda, just so that she could hear and listen, because we have done extensive research in the past about that process. So we just, we'll go back through it and see what the desires of the board is at that time.
Sounds good. Does anybody on the board have anything to bring up?
Melinda, is there an update on the Western Lake Bridge at all? Completion on it?
I do not have a specific update on it. I do apologize for that.
No, that's not
I know that it was going to be like a 2-year process.
Okay.
So it is going to be extensive. The bridge itself is extensive. It is a DOT project, not a county project. So they are trying to ensure that the roadways will be open during construction activities. But of course, in any kind of roadway construction, there'll be some delays here and there that we'll have to just be patient with until it's done.
Anybody else?
Are
Good.
there any other bridge repairs on the horizon?
So that was an update that I was able to provide to some group recently that I was really excited about. But I came to the county in 2013. I was, one of the first projects I was ever assigned was the Coastal Dune Lake Bridge hydrologic restoration project, which included 5 bridges that we were, or, excuse me, culverts that we were going to replace with bridges to reestablish, or do the best that we could do to reestablish a better hydrologic connection to the northern and southern lobes of the coastal dune lakes. Through that, throughout all those years, we have completed all 5 of them. So I think Western Lake is kind of the one that's in process right now. The last one that I think needs to be done is Stallworth, and I have started initial conversations with our engineering department to kind of see what that looks like for their work plan, and make sure it's teed up correctly. We'll look for some funding for it, because those have been really good, like we talked about earlier, resilience projects, because not only does that create good infrastructure for evacuation routes, it also helps the lakes kind of recover to more of what their natural conditions would have been prior to 38 going in. So we're at least widening that connection, allowing fish passages to do much better. And then we're also not finding that we're having issues with beaver dams as frequently as we used to when we had culverts underneath the roads.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment. Did anybody have anything to bring? Nothing, huh? All right. Well, thanks for being here and participating. And motion to adjourn. Without objection. Oh, yeah, sorry. Motion is, meeting is adjourned.